So you're not folding forward by some kind of a force that you're using on the body. You're folding forward by relaxing into the pose. Now I have a very simple question to ask. Somebody send me the question. The question is, which way is your sit bone moving? Towards the heel or away from the heel? In your left leg, which way should the sit bone move? Towards the heel or away from the heel? We're trying to untuck that pelvis. So sit bone moves away from the heel. It's like an Uttanasana. It's like downward dog. Same kind of movement as far as the leg is concerned. Sit bone moves away from the heel, stretching your hamstring, which allows you to fold forward more easily. If in doubt, if you don't understand or believe what I'm saying, purposely move the sit bone, tuck the pelvis, move the sit bone towards the heel, and try and do a forward bend. It's much more difficult. Maybe easier on the leg, but difficult on your trunk. Sit bone has to move away from you. The person who has asked me the question correctly says that that's what happens. But then the same person says, but then when I'm in, taking leg down in another posture like Sarvangasana, sit bone moves the opposite. Or I'm doing Sukta Padangushtasana. Listen very carefully. I lie down, taking whatever support in that other block, just because I'm talking. I'm doing Sukta Padangushtasana. If I can't hold the foot, I take if I can take a builder. Sukta Padangushtasana, right leg is straight, left is lifted up. In this pose, this person who is asking the question says, here the sit bone has to move towards the heel. Is that correct? Not correct at all. Here also, when you are doing this, it's a very similar posture, except you are doing in lying down position. Sit bone doesn't move towards the heel. If you do that, if you do this posture by taking the sit bone, she says to take the leg down more, I have to move the sit bone that way. No. To take the leg down, release the binding of the rotators and stretch the hamstring. That's what allows the leg to go further down. If you lift the sit bone, then you are tucking the pelvis and you are taking your lumbar into the floor. When lying down like that, in your lumbar, there should be reasonably same space as when you're seated up and lifting the leg up. Or better example would be you are doing a forward bend here. Don't round your back to do a forward bend. Lumbar you should try to keep as much of a back bend in the lumbar as you can as you go down. Which means don't be in a hurry to take your head down. I've been not only down on the block, but I've been on the floor with my head and even below the floor. To experiment that, I sit on a bench and do this asana so my head can go below the bench. I have news for you if you don't know already. There's nothing there. Doesn't matter how far down you take, there's nothing there. There's air and flow. So don't be in a hurry to go there. Do the action correctly, keeping the lumbar as concave as you can. The first thing that really goes down is the floating rib touches the thigh. After that, you can release the back. Okay? But don't go rounding the back. Except in some therapeutic cases, temporarily, a good teacher, because of your pain in the back, might ask you to not worry about rounding the leg. But that's a therapeutic situation. It's not a general way to do the posture. Sit up. Right leg to Baddha left to Dandasana. Left hand behind you, lift the trunk. As you lift the trunk, it's not just for lifting the trunk. You're trying to keep the concavity of your back. What happens when you try to make the back concave like that in your back, in your spinal muscles? They come together. So I take my hand here. Let's say I'm learning this as a beginner. As soon as I do that, I feel my spinal muscles in the back coming closer to each other. Don't go down. Stay here, stay as high up as necessary. Learn to release those muscles, particularly near the top of the pelvis. Release the spinal muscles away from each other. If you don't understand what I'm asking you to do, or if you're not able to do it, purposely do the opposite. Means bind the muscles to each other in your back and then let go. Then bind them towards each other again and then let go. Do that several times. At least the brain will understand what is wanted. To release the muscles away from each other. To go further, don't tighten your spinal muscles, particularly in the lower lumbar area. Release them away from each other. If those muscles tighten together, the vertebral column is pulled towards the back of your body. Not a desirable thing to do, unless you don't like your back. When you are able to release the spinal muscles away from each other, then the vertebral column can fall forward towards the navel. Same happens in your dorsal chest. The dorsal vertebra should fall towards the sternum. So with regard to that movement of the vertebral column, in a so-called forward bend or forward fold, the inner body is still doing a back bend. Then as your floating ribs, as I described, comes in contact with the thigh, you can take the head down on a block or support. Slowly the head has to go lower down as you can, as per your capacity. After you hold the position for a little length of time, if you decide to go a little further, the first thing to do is, can you untuck your pelvis more? Move the sit bone away from the hip. The second thing to do is, in the lower lumbar, release the spinal muscles away from each other. Then attempt to go further down into the forward fold. If you try to go further down by simply stretching the hamstring or stretching your trunk, it would be dangerous. Even if for some reason your body is able to do that in the wrong way. If you do it in the wrong way, your breath is shallow. Even in a forward fold like this, can the breath be as free as though you are in Shavasana? That can only happen if the sit bone is moved away from the heel more, which can only happen if your hamstring will allow it. And the breath can only be free if your spinal muscles, particularly in the lowest part of the lumbar, are releasing away from each other. So you're releasing into a forward fold, not pulling yourself into forward. To come out of the position, see that you don't lose the spinal muscles away from each other completely. They will still stay away from each other as you sit up. So that the forward fold like that has taught you what really? at an immediate level, it has taught you good dandasana. Right leg forward. If your left leg was back, then you need to do second side.